Live.
Yay! Well, Memrex, at least. Memrex. A little bit different today. You got three floating heads here talking to you. I am, of course, Old New Dude. Richard is, of course,
Richard York, Asher's trueborn son.
And the Green Bard is definitely...
Oh, I'm the Green Bard, Guy here to purvey the Bard's truth for you.
Nice.
It was very, very nice for the Green Bard to reach out and ask to do this one particular chapter with us, and we definitely appreciate it. He's at like 600 subscribers, and we're at like 66. So
I'm at like 14.
Yeah. Well, hey,
it was
I'm in the middle. It works out pretty good. But if you've watched any of ours before, what happens is that Richard will start in with what he saw in the chapter, and then I generally will jump in with my stupid stuff every now and then. With this chapter, it'll be probably every time we stop reading. And then I'm sure that Guy, with the Green Bard, is definitely going to jump in with his knowledge. If you've watched any of his videos, he blows me away. So take it away, Richard.
All right. So this, as people may know, this is the Tower of Joy dream chapter, and it's also the chapter in which Robert strikes Cersei and reinstates Ned as Hand of the King. So he dreamt an old dream of 3 knights in white cloaks and a tower long fallen, and Lyanna in her bed of blood. In the dream, his friends rode with him as they had in life. Proud Martin Cassell, Jory's father, faithful Theo Wool, Ethan Glover, who had been Brandon's squire, Sir Mark Riswell, soft of speech and gentle of heart, the Cranagman, Howland Reed, Lord Dustin on his great red stallion. Ned had known their faces as well as he knew his own once, but the years leach at a man's memories, even those he has vowed never to forget. In the dream, they were only shadows, gray wraiths on horses made of mist. So it's Ned's companions, with the possible exception of Howland Reed, who are sort of associated with death in this dream. Although Casey may take objection to me saying that. We'll get to his interpretation.
Yeah, we'll get to it.
Well, yeah, interesting that you know, they're wraiths, right? He doesn't remember their faces, right?
Right. But just later on in the same chapter, we have the shadows moved up with him, beside him, with shadow swords in their hand. Howland Reed should not be a shadow.
Yeah, that's true. It's a good point.
Yeah. So I mean, for him to call it, for George R. R. Martin to leave out that one little Howland Reed's, I can see Howland Reed. I know his name and his face, but he kind of bunches them all into the shadow wraiths.
Yeah.
True. But has Ned seen Howland Reed since they departed? I'm not so sure that he has.
Yeah, this is true.
Pretty hermited in there.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
That's one good point, but you're right. But I'm still not going to say you're right. You're right. But go ahead.
That's point.
What's that?
We're ready to go?
Yeah.
Right. They were 7 facing 3 in the dream as it had been in life. Yet these were no ordinary 3. They waited before the round tower, the red mountains of Dorne at their backs, their white cloaks blowing in the wind. And these were no shadows. Their faces burned clear even now. Sir Arthur Dane, the Sword of the Morning, had a sad smile on his lips. The hilt of the great sword Dawn poked up over his right shoulder. Sir Oswell Went was on one knee, sharpening his blade with a whetstone. Across his white-enameled helm, the black bat of his house spread its wings. Between them stood fierce old Sir Gerald Hightower, the White Bull, Lord Commander of the King's Guard. So the Green Hand would say that Went sharpening his blade is a clue. He's the shrewd-eyed man obsessed with the sharpness of Jon Snow's blade. But others will tell you that the Went symbolism and Dantos identifying Oswell as Oswell with no names indicate that, or could point towards Oswell Kettleblack as Oswell Went. Ulmer of the Kingswood, one of the best archers at the wall, claims to have hit the hand of the White Bull. So it probably makes sense both from the evidence and symbolically, if Corran is Gerald Hightower. But tales grow in the telling, and Ulmer might not know John Derry from Gerald Hightower from Oswell Went. And I really do like the Tormund Gerald theory that Greenhand has offered. I don't know. I'm really torn. I've always been really torn on who is Corran Halfhand, but I'm sure that all three shrewd-eyed Westerosi are former Kingsguard, but I don't know for certain which Kingsguard is Corran Halfhand.
Yeah, so that's a good point. I was an early subscriber to Order of the Green Hand, and I like a lot of what they do. They do a great job researching what they do. I feel like a lot of times that they get the conclusion wrong. Actually, not to say always, because certainly old new dude and I are on the same page about the Littlefinger ability to use magic, right?
Yes.
But I think a lot of times and that one I would say is probably their best video or best series. But in this, I think they're wrong. But I originally did subscribe to that as well. They gave a pretty good theory there, right?
Yeah.
You guys ever seen user M Toodles on Reddit?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Richard talks about him all the time.
Yeah, he did a wonderful job of convincing me otherwise, in that it is that Corran would be Gerald Hightower. I believe Jamie does remember Gerald Hightower being the one with the hurt hand as well. I believe that's.
I didn't realize that. Now that would nail it for me if that's the case. I have not seen that, but that may be.
Yeah, maybe I'll send you an email or post something about that now that we have mentioned it publicly. But I believe that there is evidence there as well.
Okay. My turn?
Go ahead.
Is it my turn?
Yeah, go ahead.
Don't make that face. Even though my screen is frozen on this side, I know you made a face.
I'm mostly laughing.
I think Tormund Giantsbane is Lord Willem Dustin. And just to point out a couple of things in this chapter alone, when you get the descriptions of the men that are with Ned, all right, the only one that has a possession of theirs described is Lord Willem Dustin. And there's only two Kingsguard that have a possession of theirs described, and that is Sword of the Morning, Dawn sticking over his right shoulder, and then Oswald Went, the bat of his house on his helm. So, I mean, granted, I'm going to see all the stuff that points the way that I want to go. So those are just like big red flares for me, and I'm the T-Rex getting ready to eat. But
we don't want it to be boring. And if we all agreed on everything, what would
exactly
we talk about in the live stream? We would all just agree and it'd be over in 8 minutes.
That's what I said the other week.
Yeah.
I'm all in on Corran Halfhand. See, for my theory to be correct, either one of the Kingsguard has to die, or one of the Kingsguard is glamored, and that's a different story. But one of the Kingsguard to die, it would have to be probably Sir Gerald Hightower, because he doesn't have the description item with him. So for my theory to be right, the big red stallion for Lord Willem Dustin, and that's the only item that gets returned. And I say the only reason it gets returned is you can't keep that horse at Winterfell, because it'd be a recognizable horse to somebody in the north. And we've already heard from in the prologue that big of a distrider, that big of a horse, that big of a war horse is the wrong kind of horse for north of the wall. And if he's acting as Tormund to try to find out the strength of the north, or maybe even become the king beyond the wall, he's a lord in the north. So, I mean, he already has leader experience. And so I say he went north of the wall to try to become the king beyond the wall, and he couldn't do it. And that's when Mance Rayder had to come fly down off his wall to help him. Now, I have heard that Well, there's old there's old Lord Dustin, and he's young Lord Dustin. And he's too young to be Tormund. And my argument on that one is, all right, we got old Willem Dustin, or old Lord Dustin, and young Lord Dustin. Old Lord Dustin could be 80 years old, and then young Lord Dustin could be 50, 60 at the time of Robert's rebellion, and then be the perfect age for Tormund. So those two things right there alone kind of just they cancel each other out. You know what I mean?
I don't like someone's too old, someone's too young. The ages don't quite line up. I don't like those arguments when folks try to.
Right.
In fact, I like when obviously my stuff is fringe, but it's not really tinfoil. It's more. But I really like tinfoil ideas because it's creative, and George R. Martin is extremely creative in his writing.
Right.
So I don't like when folks come out and they try to debunk theories. Right. It does not make sense to try to debunk things. Even if somebody's got 90% wrong and 10% right, we should be supporting that 10% and not debunking that. Not debunking that 90%. That's
right.
Yeah,
all theories are welcome here. I mean, we don't yell at nobody. Everybody gets along.
As Casey has said, I mean, one of the things that I really do like about that theory is the idea that would Gerald Hightower have the sort of crass sense of humor that Tormund has versus right? So there's something that's weird with Tormund, right? Literally right after he tells you I don't know how to read, he tells you I know how to write, I know what kind of ink maesters use, I know what kind of quills maesters use. There's something going on there.
See, now that's another one of those. We got Lord or Lady Dustin that cannot stand maesters, and then which they had something to do with her husband leaving, and I think it had something to do with her being a bitch, but that's just me. We got Kat's wedding at the bedding ceremony. All these other people are talking smack and everything, and then Lord Dustin, all he could do was stare at her breasts. And then when he got back to Ned, he told her, he's like, your wife's breasts are so beautiful, I wish I'd never been weaned. And as soon as I read that, I'm like, holy cow, that's Tormund. And then that's what I started actually going in and going.
Right. And I'm bringing this up because Guy is saying, well, let's support the things that are right about people's tinfoil. And my point is, there's some definitely interesting things to go with this.
Yeah. There's evidence that some folks put together evidence about that. It's just been well documented that Tormund is definitely more educated than he lets on.
Oh yeah.
And so that's definitely a point in the favor of who's of searching out for that answer, who Tormund Giantsbane might be, right? Doesn't mean he's not wildling though, right?
Right.
I tend to think that's the case, right? But that is a lot of time south of the wall. His tie-ins with his daughter and the Umbers, the potential that some of his kids are actually the kids of Mage Mormont, right?
Right.
I don't know if the Mage is true, but I think it's a great idea.
Right.
Yeah, I do too. It helps my theory a little bit, so I definitely like it.
The other thing I want to say, to finish my earlier thought.
Yeah, sorry.
Barbara Dustin being younger definitely doesn't mean that her husband was not was about the same age. There's nothing to say in the text.
Right.
Oh, absolutely.
Yep.
We're told several times that the ages are always lopsided toward the male.
And another thing you see there is George kind of playing with that, right? Sometimes hinting at things like people will assume that because somebody was somebody's uncle, that means that they're much older than them when they could be younger, and so forth, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
That ended pretty good.
Richard, before you go on, one other thing I just want to point out linguistically, these is the word that they use for the Kingsguard, George uses for the Kingsguard, and they is the word that George is using for Ned's companions.
Right. The idea is that there's 5 deaths, and Toodles talks about that, right? That the language implies 5 deaths, but even though there's 8 cairns, and so then the question becomes, okay, well, why are there 8 cairns and so forth? But we will definitely discuss.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I looked for you on the Trident, Ned said to them. We were not there, Sir Gerald answered. Woe to the usurper if we had been, said Sir Oswell. When King's Landing fell, Sir Jaime slew your king with a golden sword, and I wondered where you were. Far away, Sir Gerald said, or Ares would yet sit the Iron Throne, and our false brother would burn in 7 hells. I came down in Storm's End to lift the siege, Ned told them, and the lords Tyrell and Redwine dipped their banners, and all their knights bent the knee to pledge us fealty. I was certain you would be among them. Our knees do not bend easily, said Sir Arthur Dane. So...
Why did you read it like that?
So I just in my notes I just put Arthur is Mance Rayder. I mean,
yeah. I have no problem with that whatsoever.
Right.
I think we would all agree on that particular one. What I want to point out in this, well, go ahead, Richard. You give the rest of your points first.
Okay. I think there's more evidence for that one than for any of the other of the 3 shrewd-eyed Westerosi. If your objection is that he would be recognized when he goes to see King Robert at the crowded Stark event in Winterfell, see Arya's surprise when the Hound, the world's most recognizable former Kingsguard, confidently approaches a knight he's encountered more times than he can count, with zero fear of being recognized, in order to see the king named after King Robert at a crowded Stark event. But it's over and over again he does this, right? He has people with slightly wild hair or with a little bit of difference in facial hair be unrecognizable, and especially, Arya's hair is a little wild. She's dirty, and she's dressed as a boy, as a common boy, and she's been sewing with Myrcella, and she's like one of the few kids of Myrcella's age that Myrcella knows, and Myrcella can't recognize her.
Yeah. And Harwin couldn't recognize her. Somebody she'd been around all the time, right?
Yeah, I got a different theory on it,
but George makes it very obvious in his world, this world that he's created, that people can disappear by looking differently, right? And again, bring up he had a wonderful essay on recognition, and goes through probably 100 examples of exactly that happening. The only example we have that he went into that doesn't, where it doesn't happen, is when they are specifically in the Rivers Lands looking for Jaime, and he gets in a fight with somebody, a sword fight with somebody. Then they know who he is. That's the only time, right?
And Tyrion recognizes Catelyn, but he's literally like just seen her and just missed the fact that she's not in Winterfell and wondering where she is when he sees her.
Yes, and actually, yeah, right. But Tyrion's obviously an exceptional character too, right?
Well, but it's sort of the same thing. He's wondering, where was she when I went to Winterfell?
Winterfell. Good point. Yeah, I remember that. Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's arguably the same kind of thing.
I'm a little different.
The other thing.
Yeah. Go ahead. You want to talk about glamour?
Just a little bit.
Go ahead.
Just a little bit.
I'll have one more point, but go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. The other thing I want to point out, they say we were not there. We were not there. Our knees do not bend easily. Why were they not there? They were not there. They were not there because they have reasons to not be there, right? They, at least 2 out of the 3, went and Dane were very much in Rhaegar's camp, right? I can't say we know for sure about Gerald because he got there later, right?
Right.
But the other 2 were in Rhaegar's camp. They supported what Rhaegar was trying to do. Rhaegar had been that inspirational leader that they thought Westeros needed, right? So Arthur Dane he bought into what Rhaegar was selling, and this goes back to the House of the Dragon, what was just brought up in that prophecy, right? We're pretty sure that Rhaegar was chasing this same prophecy, right?
Right.
And so he had told them, let's, we need to get ready for this, right? So if those guys are alive, at least some of them, if they were buying into that theory, where's the best place for them to be, right? Well, the best place would be where the Targaryens are or where the others are going to be, right?
Right.
I mean, those are the 2 things that were part of that prophecy. Where's the Targaryen? Well, Dany and Viserys, right? Where's the others? Well, we know, right?
Right.
They're in the wall.
Well, I think they're Kingsguard, and all it mattered was Rhaegar believed this theory, that this was going to happen, and all he would need to do would be give him an order, and these guys would definitely follow that order to their death if they had to.
So if they submitted to Ned, and if they were put into exile by Ned, they did
No.
it in such that they could continue to
Yeah.
do that, right? To
Right.
support that work that Rhaegar had started.
The on that, and we might have to do this a two-parter because of how long I can talk.
Go ahead. It's all you, man. Now.
Yeah. We're told that Sir Arthur Dayne would have killed Ned if not for Howland Reed. It doesn't say Howland Reed physically beat up Sir Arthur Dayne. He put a stop to the fight.
Right.
And I say the quickest way, because I say someone there was glamored, and I say the glamored person was Oswald Went, and he was actually Rhaegar staying with the mama, staying with the babies, staying with the future of the Song of Ice and Fire, everything that he's got on the line. And she's going to have a difficult birth if it's the three babies me and Richard think. So I mean, she's in a bed of blood, so it's definitely not a good time for her. So I say that the prince is there. Howland Reed, and we've already been shown that somebody smart like Illyrio, not Illyrio, sort of the water dancer.
Syria, bro?
Yeah, Syria. He could see through a glamour. And Swamp Wizard Howland Reed definitely has to be able to see through a glamour, and would see through the Oswald Went glamour and go yo, stop. Granted, he didn't use the word yo, but hey, that's the prince there. What's going on? And then we do have the loss of memory. We have so many signs that there have been some hidden fingers. There's been some playing around in his head. To take away his memory, two, probably control what he thinks actually happens there, and what he takes away from that certain situation. Because you still got George R. R. Martin say, look, this is a fever dream, take from it what you will. And granted, I'm nitpicking and finding out every little word in there that helps me, but in my mind, it seems.
Speaking of which, there's some more words that help you here that we've already just went over. So, we said far away, right? The far away line is what Greenhand would say. It points to the fact that they were actually in Winterfell, right?
Right.
And you like that theory, so it's probably worth pointing out that's
well,
right
that
here.
was one of the. Oh, do you remember there, Geek? The one time I was really getting yelled at for trying to figure out how Lyanna could be in a second bed of blood at the Tower of Joy and it not be a birthing bed. Do you remember that conversation? You jumped in, saving me from David.
Yeah, I don't remember that, but I can say that I do believe Lyanna was at the Tower of Joy in
she was
Marches. That part of it, but
right.
I don't recall that specific conversation though. No, sorry.
Yeah, well, basically what it was is I was trying to figure out how Lyanna can be in a bed of blood and it not be a birthing bed. And then it was Austin Flowers, and I think somebody else was pointing the bleeding techniques that were used in medieval times, which are used in this world too, because George Washington or somebody died from being bled too much. They took too much blood from him or something. So I'm like, well, that's another reason that she could be in that bed. And I got yelled at left and right saying, no, it's a birthing bed. It's a birthing bed. I'm like, no, it doesn't say birthing bed. It says bed of blood. So I'm trying to figure out how she could have the baby at Winterfell and then come south and then be in a bed of blood there. So if it's three babies and it's a rough pregnancy, she moves too soon. She brings the Winterfell maester with him because he disappears at this time too, takes him south because she's having a hard time of it. She gets an infection at Starfall on the way to King's Landing with the glamoured prince, and they have to stop at the Tower of Joy, and that's what she's in the bed of blood for, because they're bleeding her for her fever. Because we even told about her fever by Ned himself. The fever, it took all her strength. Sorry, I know I talk a lot.
No, so you may have heard us do this before, but basically, my take on this is that I see where Greenhand is with this. I see where Casey is with this. I see why they see these. There's a lot more seeds planted towards that than just this line about them being far away and so forth. But
you tell me about the weeding.
But in my opinion, George is working on the weeds of winter, and he has to pull some of these seeds that he's planted, right? And the simple explanation is this is a birthing bed at the Tower of Joy, and there is symbolism behind the concept of the oldest triplet being female and being born in Dorne, and going with Arthur Dane. So in my mind, I'm not disputing the fact that there's all these interesting parallels that are planted. There's some words that I see why they interpret them that way and so forth. I'm just saying, I think he's got to pull some of these weeds.
He got a lot of them.
Yeah, he leaves a lot of things that he could use, right? That he could use, he is not going to be able to use, right?
And you know the old stories where it was like choose your own adventure. If you wanted to take the left corridor, turn to page 42. Sure. That's how he writes. He doesn't know which way he wants to turn yet, so he leaves it open for both directions.
So yeah, it's that stuff is all there. My thought, I have another theory about Danny and the connection to Dorne, but we'll wait on that one.
Yeah. I mean, just the fact that there's so many. It's not just that there's no citrus trees like specifically in the Riverlands, but and it's implied that they sort of had to mostly import the lemons in the Vale.
I mean, I'm a Lemon Gate supporter. I would have the Lemon Gate shirt on.
Yeah. Yeah, I often wear the Lemon Gate shirt, but yeah, there's certainly the symbolism pointing towards Dorne, and it makes more sense if they're actually born there and so forth, right?
Yeah. Let me say this real quick, because I don't know if I make it clear enough. I'm fine with anybody's theory being correct. By the end of the day, Winds of Winter comes out, it's whatever it is, and I've been 100% wrong on every single thing I've said. I'm okay with that. It's still a book that I love, and I get to talk about it. So I just want to throw that out there.
Oh yeah, I mean, it would be even better, because then it means we'll be surprised, right? I mean, that's so much better.
I only have one theory that I'm laying dying on the hill on, and that's it.
Yeah, and it's the one we just talked about.
Yeah, my favorite. Sorry.
Let's go forward, guys.
No, we're good.
Sir Willem Darry is fled to Dragonstone with your queen and Prince Viserys. I thought you might have sailed with him. Sir Willem is a good man and true, said Sir Oswell. But not of the Kingsguard, Sir Gerald pointed out. The Kingsguard does not flee. So this sounds a lot like the First Sword of Bravos, who might also be alive.
That's interesting. On the subject of Willem Darry, I'm a subscriber to the idea that there might be two Willem Darrys, right? The one that Viserys lived with and the one that Danny lived with. So I find the idea that Willem Dustin is very similar to Willem Darry to be very intriguing in that situation.
Oh.
And you know, so
we'll just gave me goosebumps.
Get further on that one, but I thought if any of the seven facing three survived, aside from Howland and Ned, it was Willem Dustin.
Okay, I'm going to tell you, every time we get to the end of the video, Richard usually gives me goosebumps on something, and you've been christened in, because I got goosebumps on both arms just from that alone. I love hearing something new.
Then or now, said Sir Arthur. He donned his helm. We swore a vow, explained old Sir Gerald. So Ned specifically mentioned failing to keep his vow earlier, and they were just discussing Jaime as their false brother. So it's interesting that they're saying we swore a vow, right? And yet, do they keep to this vow, or did something happen that causes them not to keep to the vow after this? But anyway.
Well, I mean, on that vow, not to toot my own horn again, but if there is a glamored prince there, they're still keeping that vow.
Well, in my opinion, what happened is that Howland probably said to crown them is to kill them, and reminded them the vow is not to be Targaryen loyalists until you get the royal family killed. It's to protect the royal family, and if to crown them is to kill them, your responsibility is to make sure that they disappear, and therefore you shouldn't be fighting us. We should be helping you with that vow.
Right. After you've done killed so many people.
Yeah, after you've already killed 5 of our 7.
Well, I have no doubt.
I think that's a great point, though. I mean, the fact that they obviously whoever I'm assuming that we're in general agreement that if Lyanna had a baby in the Tower of Joy right there, that it was probably Rhaegar's child?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So, because some people even argue that that's not. But I mean, either way, we're
Yeah.
so the idea would be that that's one of the potential heirs. I mean, you could argue that Viserys was an heir, and that that Dany is trueborn daughter as well. But at least that baby would be one of the potential heirs. So I think the idea is the reason they think they're there is they chose that one to be the Targaryen. And you're right, they didn't crown them. So I mean, we're on the same page there, right?
Right. And getting back to, I have no doubt whatsoever that Sir Gerald Hightower in that situation is Sir Gerald Hightower, just by the way he answers questions.
All right, guys. Again, so I got a cable in case I do. So I'm getting down on battery here.
All right. Ned's Wraiths moved up beside him with shadow swords in hand. They were 7 against 3.
Again.
And now it begins, said Sir Arthur Dane, the sword of the morning. He unsheathed on and held it with both hands. The blade was pale as milk glass, alive with light. No, Ned said with sadness in his voice. Now it ends. As they came together in a rush of steel and shadow, he could hear Lyanna screaming. Eddard, she called. A storm of rose petals blew across a blood-streaked sky, as blue as the eyes of death. So now it ends is going to be repeated in the same chapter. And this storm of rose petals could be a hint that perhaps Daenerys Stormborn is in fact being born here.
Potentially.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, the other thing that just struck me, and I guess I wanted to call back, is that they were 7 facing 3 is very similar, but not exactly the same language as what we heard earlier. And
right.
Was it earlier that they said and only 3
No, that's actually after the fever dream. Where he's thinking about the cairns. We'll get there.
Wait for that then. Okay, good.
Yeah. The first time he says that they were 7 facing 3 in the dream as it had been in life, which that's a phrase that sticks out in my head.
Yeah, but they were 7 is repeated twice, or repeated once, I guess. Stated twice.
Yeah, I just want to wait until they say that only 3 had lived, or only 2 had lived to ride away.
Sure.
Yeah. But the rose petals that blew across the blue streaked sky, as blue as the eyes of death. Yeah. Those blue eyes are Robert's, correct?
I don't know. It's. I mean, they could be. It's his steward or something here, right? It turns out to be, but Bain Poole is the one that's talking to him. But it is interesting because certainly Ned doesn't associate blue eyes with whites and White Walkers the way we do.
Right. Well, I mean that if Rhaegar and Lyanna had babies and they're Targaryens, the person that would need to kill him or would want to kill him would be Robert, and he has blue eyes. So I just automatically assumed
that makes sense.
That the blue eyes of death were Robert's eyes.
Yeah, and certainly, like I said, it can't be whites. It's not like Ned like dismisses whites as being gone for thousands of years or something.
Yeah.
All right, just got to adjust this. I can't keep going.
You want to call a time here and pick up later, or what?
No, I'm good. I just wanted to plug in.
You just wanted to plug in. You're good, right? Okay. Yeah. Lord Eddard, Lyanna called again. I promise, he whispered. Leah, I promise. Lord Eddard, a man echoed from the dark. Groaning, Eddard Stark opened his eyes. Moonlight streamed through the tall windows of the Tower of the Hand. Lord Eddard, a shadow stood over the bed. So shadows tend to serve the High Lords or being sworn brothers of the Night's Watch, sort of people who've surrendered their will to those above them. How long? The sheets were tangled, his legs splintered and plastered. A dull throb of pain shot up his side. 6 days and 7 nights, the voice was Bain Poole's. So since Anne Hesh passed away this last month, as we're streaming this, R.I.P. to Anne Hesh, star of 6 Days, 7 Nights, a movie released a couple years after this book. But I just
thought it was the other way around, but then I had to look it up, and it sure as heck was,
Yeah, it was released a couple years after the book, but 6 Days and 7 Nights. Anyway, it's it made me think of her passing, her recent passing.
Good movie, and obviously, the thing I remember her for, right?
Right.
Sure. She's a fierce little thing, my lord. I've never seen such anger in a girl. Arya has not even begun to fight.
Yeah, I mean, her bond with Nymeria is already showing in her physical at this early of an age, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you guys have watched all my stuff, but the concept of mirroring across the bond to a direwolf or to a dragon is really strong. I think we see it in House of the Dragon right now with Daemon and that scene we saw in episode 1, and in episode 2. Now that that's happened, and we definitely see it in Arya and Nymeria, the wildness. I find the earlier chapter. I don't know if you guys went through Sansa 1, but the amount of mirroring between Sansa and Lady, and then the contrast of the mirroring between Arya and Nymeria is just striking in that chapter. And that's obviously Sansa's first chapter, the only one we get with Lady. But
Right.
Just a shout out to your fans who may not know my channel.
Go ahead.
I go into great detail about each direwolf bond on my channel. Now I'm starting to do that with dragons as well.
Right.
So.
Wasn't that some of your first videos?
Yeah, I wrote those essays back in like 2019, and
Right.
It took me 3 years to get all the videos out.
I think when you were first writing those, you were messaging me in over on Reddit and asking for my takes and things.
I was trying to get people who were open-minded to look at it. Yeah, absolutely. So I don't remember specifically picking you out, but I picked out a lot of people who seemed open-minded. I'm sure you would have been one of those people, right?
Yeah, I definitely remember you did.
Yeah. Yeah.
He could not face Robert now. The dream had left him weak and as a kitten. We see this. I say that it is a nod to the memory block that is the hidden fingers of memory block that was put on him, because we see another memory block earlier, I think 2 chapters ago, with Bran. And it could be read both ways, whether he was remembering the way he felt when he fell, or George is hiding somebody, putting another block on that memory, and it's giving him the dizzy feeling. The stomach is clenched as a stone.
Well, and you get some evidence of that with the three-eyed crow saying, not now, right. So when he tries to think of that later, he's kind of told, no, you're not allowed to think about that. So
yeah, I think when it comes to Bran, he's only to remember that dream when it is beneficial to the person that is keeping that dream from him.
Yeah, I think when we talk about Eddard, it's not just a memory block. Though I agree there is a memory block there.
Yeah.
There's kind of 3 things. He wants to keep his promises, right? He wants to do everything to keep his promises. It seems clear, though, by this point in the book, that he's not going to be able to keep them all, right?
Right.
And so that torments him. The idea that some of the things he's done to keep them, he considers to be dishonorable. I think that torments him. And then I forgot the other one, but it'll come back to me. Don't worry about it. But there's another.
That's usually what I say.
Whatever happens, Ned said, I want my daughters kept safe. I fear this is only the beginning. So Ned's paraphrasing Arthur's line about the beginning, and Robert's going to echo Ned's response here in just a little bit. Jory and the others. I gave them over to the Silent Sisters to be sent north to Winterfell. Jory would want to lie beside his grandfather. It would have to be his grandfather, for Jory's father was buried far to the south. Martin Castle had perished with the rest. Ned had pulled the tower down afterward and used its bloody stones to build 8 cairns upon the ridge. It was said that Rhaegar had named that place the Tower of Joy, but for Ned it was a bitter memory. They had been 7 against 3, yet only 2 had lived to ride away. Eddard Stark himself and the little Crannogman, Halland Reed. He did not think it omened well that he should dream that dream again after so many years.
So I just remember the Eddard thing. And before I forget it again, I'm going to spit it out.
Go ahead.
Eddard has regrets over all these things. He regrets many things. He says it in later chapters, I believe. When he's talking Cersei. We can, if you guys want me to join the next one, we can keep going with the Eddard chapters because I find him fascinating. But
I have no problem with that.
regrets are a theme in his thing, and it's regrets. Almost everything he does seems to go back to those promises, right? So promises and regrets.
And he lived his lies for 14 years, or whatever he says, right?
That's one of.
Yeah.
So Ned built cairns for his 7 and the 3 they faced, minus himself and Howland Reed. Therefore, most readers are led to believe the Kingsguard must be dead. But do we know this for a certainty? So I say it that way because that's said twice, right?
Yes.
Do we know this for a certainty? Is what Cersei says when they tell her that Davos is dead.
We know.
And more importantly, it's what Brienne says. Which Brienne asks the elder brother if he knows for a certainty if Sandor is dead.
Which clearly he's not, obviously. I think
right. The elder brother buried Sandor Clegane himself and used stones to mark his grave, which is pretty much the definition of building a cairn.
Yeah,
right. As Ned does for the Kingsguard. The elder brother has amazing healing magic that goes far beyond what a maester could do. We're specifically told this. And he somehow knows a whole lot about Sandor and Arya, despite supposedly coming across him too late. It's interesting how Barristan, Loras, and both Clegane brothers seem to be seen, with all of them, we seem to be seeing a significant portion of the Kingsguard reappearing literally multiple books later, as if our author were establishing a pattern hinting at something. Perhaps hinting that Ned treated the dead Kingsguard like the elder brother treated the dead former Kingsguard Sandor Clegane.
Yeah, I think just aside from to your earlier point that people can disappear in this world, the other thing that he does is he makes it really easy for people to reappear in this world, because if you didn't see them die, like we saw Ned die, we know for a fact that his head came off, right? If you did not see them die on page, there's a good chance that you might see him again.
Right.
So
he will also tell you not to guarantee that that's the truth too. He said when it comes to death on the page that it is not always through unreliable narrators. You might see somebody die on the page and they not die.
Well,
something like that.
Well, we already have. We saw that with Mance Rayder.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I was thinking he was probably meaning somebody other than Mance Rayder, because Mance Rayder's extremely.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll do it again. I'm sure that's not the only time it's going to happen in the entire series.
Right. Well, I mean, I don't know how much of wins he's got written.
Since we're talking potential death fake outs, since I brought up the Willem Dustin thing, I'm going to follow through on that. So, only lived to ride away. I kind of gave you a preview of that a couple minutes ago.
Yeah.
Only lived to ride away. Well, we know that Willem Dustin does not have his horse anymore. So, even if he lived, he didn't ride away.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So,
well, like I was telling him, the only one to live to ride away, if Willem Dustin is the persona of Willem Dustin, died right then and there at the Tower of Joy.
And that's the same. That's the same character. That's what the cairns signify. That person died, and that's why Ned is saying he did that. And it could be that's Ned, right? He could have convinced himself that that's the case because he wants it to be true, because he doesn't want to be dishonorable. He doesn't want to lie, right?
Right. Well, I was telling Richard before you got on, the old Lone Ranger, when he went into the valley with the other Rangers and all 8 of them got shot up and 7 of them died, the Indians saved him, and the Indians made the what is it called? Cranes? They made 7 graves, and they healed the Lone Ranger, and then when he put the mask on, he wanted to protect the people that he loved and everything. So he went back to that valley and built the 8th grave where people would think that 8 Rangers died there instead of 7. So the number of stones that they used, I don't put a whole lot of stock into that. Interesting
coincidence there, huh?
Oh yeah.
We know he likes comic books. We know he likes, and I go ahead and tell you, I'm younger than he is, and I guarantee you he knows who Hopalong Cassidy is. I guarantee you that he watched Lone Ranger. I guarantee you he wrote or read the little the earlier comic books, which before superheroes were westerns or scary or stuff like that. So that definitely is in there.
Early in life, having been fed on things on media like that, he thought that heroism was what we see in that type of medium. He had a lot of trouble relating to others and having female male relationships early in life because he wanted to be a knight in shining armor, and that's not what a lot of the women he was attracted to wanted, right? So I think he uses that in these books where Howland Reed's the one that walks, not Arthur Dane, right? That, like we said, we do believe that that those three Kingsguard probably did survive. And even if they didn't, I think George can decide to pull some of those weeds to Richard's earlier point and not introduce those subjects to us. But that Mance Rayder was modeled after Arthur Dane. He did the same things that Arthur Dane did in the Kingswood. He did that north of the wall. Right? So even if he never there, he's the same exact character archetype, whether or not George chooses to reveal.
I think he has to follow through on it because how can you explain him being trained to fight exactly like Barristan, right? Like the most well-trained Kingsguard there is. How did he get that training at the wall?
I mean, if you saw my best sword fighters in Westeros clickbaity videos, definitely I put Mance Rayder number one, and mentioned that potentially that's why, right?
Right.
I remember that. Yes.
Are we ready to go? Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is this how you keep my peace, Ned? 7 men are dead. 8, the Queen corrected. Traeger died this morning of the blow Lord Stark gave him. 8, like the number of cairns. 5 from the side with more men, and 3 from the side with fewer men.
Oh my goodness, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to laugh. I just read ahead. I love you, Richard.
All right, are we ready?
Yeah, I won't do it again, I promise.
All right. She cannot be more than 15 and a whore, and you thought she had sense? Ned said, incredulous. His leg was beginning to pain him sorely. It was hard to keep his temper. The fool child is in love with you, Robert. A fool child, no more than 15, in love with royalty in a chapter about Lyanna Stark?
I didn't laugh as loud that time.
Okay. No, he said, I want no more of this. Jaime slew 3 of your men, and you 5 of his. Now it ends. So there it is, the answer to it beginning. Now it ends.
There you go.
If any man had dared to speak to a Targaryen as he has spoken to you, do you take me for Ares? Robert interrupted. I took you for a king. From Daenerys 1, anger flashed in her brother's lilac eyes. Do you take me for a fool? The Magister bowed slightly. I take you for a king. Kings lack the caution of common men. My apologies if I've given offense.
Yeah, well, at least there was no slapping with him and Illyrio.
Yeah.
We can agree that Robert, this is a good reflection of what Robert has become, right?
That's
story, another theme in this first book is that Robert is not the man he used to be. He's been rotted. He's rotted on that throne.
Or more importantly, that toxic masculinity doesn't make a good king. It might make a good warrior, but not a good king.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, well, yeah. He could have gone in a better way though if he had not become king, right?
Although I gotta say, he realizes that he's not the right guy to run the kingdom, and he tries to get confident hands with with Jon and with Ned. And really, those guys' biggest mistake are that they trust Littlefinger, who they're told to trust by their wives, the Tully sisters.
Without a doubt.
So if he just didn't appoint, brothers-in-law to the Tully sisters, maybe he would be okay.
Well, yeah. Catelyn has a mental block about Littlefinger. It's very interesting. I find if we want to go back into earlier chapters, her it must not come to war and then immediately starting a war by taking Tyrion.
Yeah.
And her inability, having had that inner monologue when she's in King's Landing of all the things that are not good about Littlefinger's character, but then she continuously gives him the benefit of the doubt for the entire rest of that book, and probably I think into the other books, right? She continues to give him the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, like she's being told by both Lannister brothers that he's telling everybody that he took her virginity and so forth, right?
Yeah, but not only that, I mean, she's slowly believing Tyrion. She's like, he's making a lot of good points.
Yeah, and then she goes, no, Peter says this.
Yeah. She automatically snaps back to Peter. I mean,
the Peter Baelish apologist. She doesn't even realize that she's doing it almost out of habit, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna get a light here, guys, if you don't mind.
Yeah, it got really dark on your screen. Do you want me to continue, or?
Go ahead.
Can you hear me? Okay, as long as you can hear me. My loving wife, the mother of my children. The rage was gone from him now. In his eyes, Ned saw something sad and scared. I should not have hit her. That was not kingly. He stared down at his hands as if he did not quite know what they were. I was always strong. No one could stand before me. No one. How do you fight someone if you can't hit them? Confused, the king shook his head. Rhaegar won, damn him. I killed him, Ned. I drove the spike right through that black armor into his black heart, and he died at my feet. They made up songs about it, yet somehow he still won. He has Lyanna now, and I have her. Robert knew how to win a war, but he still has no idea how to be a king.
No.
As we were just discussing, toxic masculinity can equate conflict with violence, even as it insists that women must not conflict with men.
Yeah.
The only time I ever feel sad or bad for Robert is that paragraph right there.
It's almost hard to, because it just happened right after the prior, right?
Yeah.
It really Mark's doing that to us on purpose, by the way, so we can hardly fault ourselves for it.
Yeah.
But I think the other thing you notice in that paragraph about Robert is his feelings towards Rhaegar. He's not capable of coherently thinking about it, just like we just talked about with Catelyn and Littlefinger. Not capable of thinking about Rhaegar in a coherent manner, in any kind of rational manner, right?
Didn't think.
Whatever you have to say can wait until I return. John 3. How often must I tell you no, John? We'll speak when I return. Feast, Jaime 1. Rhaegar had put his hand on Jaime's shoulder. When this battle's done, I mean to call a council. Changes will be made. I meant to do it long ago, but, well, it does no good to speak of roads not taken. We shall talk when I return. Those were the last words Rhaegar Targaryen ever spoke to him. Any thoughts?
No.
Yeah,
I might put a hole in my bucket on the Rhaegar being glamored, but I'll work around it. Don't worry.
If the gods are good, I shall not be here on your return. You commanded me to return to Winterfell, remember? Robert stood up, grasping one of the bedposts to steady himself. The gods are seldom good, Ned. No truer words.
Yeah.
Why would you want me as your hand if you refuse to listen to my counsel? Why? Robert laughed. Why not? Someone has to rule this damnable kingdom. Put on the badge, Ned. It suits you. And if you ever throw it in my face again, I swear to you, I'll pin the damn thing on Jaime Lannister.
Yeah, that dug it in there real easy.
Yeah, I find it, Jaime Lannister is such an interesting character, because we're told for an entire book how much of a terrible person he is, shown how much of a terrible person he has become with the Bran situation, right?
Majority.
Then once we actually see what he had to deal with the so many vows situation, we're forced to have empathy for him and start to really understand his character. I tend to lean with the folks that he's probably not going to make it out of his redemption, but it's sure going to be fun watching it happen.
Definitely.
I mean, he's a villain who's decided that he can write his own story and be good, and so he's trying to be good. And
but you see him failing at it, right? Because he's emulating time, right?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Well, I mean,
it is a good argument, as people were just discussing on Twitter, that is it a redemption arc when you attempt to murder a kid and then you do murder three guardsmen, and then 3 innocent guardsmen, and then you're so delusional about the fact that you did this that when another guy kills guardsmen, you say, I would have done the same, he lied. Like, you literally did the same.
Yeah.
He was mad because the only man he really loves was taken from him, and he killed innocent guards as just spite for the fact that the only man he loved was taken from him. And then he doesn't even realize that he did it.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I mean, Jamie's actually probably my favorite character in these books.
I think the idea that the part of what makes him and Theon so great is how low they start and how they're trying to get better, right? I mean, it makes for a better growth curve if you start out low. And so he starts off as a villain, and yes, he's misunderstood with the Mad King and so forth, but he's still a villain. He's trying to kill Bran. Is killing Jory, right? He's not a good guy to start, and people like try and make excuses for it and like figure out, he had no choice. This was how he would make sure that Tywin would escalate this to get Tyrion back. Like, what? He crushed Ned's leg and almost killed him, almost accidentally killing Tyrion in the process. I mean, no, the point is he's a villain who decides to become good. That's what's so cool about him.
Yeah, well, stop to think about it. With Theon, with Jamie, they start out, they're not POVs for us. We don't get inside their head, and you don't start to slowly understand or feel sorry or see.
Maybe that's why people don't like Sansa. They don't see the fact that she's supposed to start off terrible and get good because they were already in her head when she was terrible.
Right. So I mean, you got Bran's head, you got John's. I mean, you see all the people at the beginning of the book that you get to see inside their head. So they're dear to you. You see how they feel, how they struggle. Then you got Jamie, you got Cersei, you got Theon, you got all these people. And even though you still don't get in their head, which some of them I think you don't get in your head on purpose to hide stuff, but with Jamie and Theon, the second you start getting in there and finding that inner turmoil, the how bad he actually makes him feel to be called the King Slayer. I mean, the steamy bath scene in the book and in the show is my favorite scene out of everything.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's the Nicholas, whatever his name is, he did freaking awesome.
Nickelodeon, Costco, Walmart, some people call him.
That's one thing Twitter though is in this fandom is we get to see those different point of views, and if we can listen rather than always just speak, we can see some of the things that maybe other folks like the Sansa haters, for instance, or the Dany haters, we can see those things, objectively if we're able to be good listeners. George,
right. I'm not saying that they don't have good points.
Yeah. Oh no. Yeah. But that's one of the things that that George is really good at is he has empathy even for all his villains. Right. He's able to in their head think what would make them feel good, what would make them feel bad, what drives them, and not just the fact that they're villains, because we know that bad writing can just make an empty villain, right? Yeah. But actually gives them motivations, right? And by doing so, he makes villains that are real and that we can identify with. And we can still hate them, but we can do that. But you're right. When he has folks grow, some people have trouble with that. That we're in the few that can enjoy it even better because we see it.
Yeah, I'm glad you're right there with us.
I'm glad we're there with you.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, he's the bigger star, man.
Absolutely.
Well,
dude, this was a blast.
I did get a smile on my face when I got that email from YouTube saying I had 500 subscribers. I can
imagine.
Right there with you guys, scraping toward 100. It seemed like that took forever, right? But it's fun doing this. I put a lot more time in it than I should. I'm never going to make money at it, but it's just fun doing it,
Yeah, I don't care.
Covering other content.
Well, why I started this? Game of Thrones season 1. From then on, I've been hooked. It's all I can think about. I'm obsessed with it, and I had no one to talk to about this. I didn't know about forums. I didn't know about YouTube. I didn't know about none of that stuff until about 5 years ago. And then I found the YouTube and ordered a green hand. So about 90% of what I think is generally along the same lines as order the green hand. But I tend to vary where I see something different. And I try not to say that I'm smarter than the other people. And I try not to say that the other people are smarter than me. We each find our own clues. We each find our own way. But just the simple fact that I can't type for crap. And the talk to text, I only got half a mouth, so it don't understand half the things I say. So I get to physically talk on here with Richard a couple of times a week. And then now with you, Guy, I freaking love that. I love talking anything A Song of Ice and Fire with anyone, whether I agree with it or not.
I had seen
at the FireCon. Yeah, so I finally got to do that, and not that there was there weren't enough tinfoil purveyors out there at it, but if you're coming, that'll help.
Yes, I'll actually put tinfoil on that.
I'll have to think about it. I gotta have to see if I might. I actually did sign up to go in 2020, and then I was thinking it's probably like you said that everybody's so conventional and so skeptical. And I mean, I get blocked by people just because I advocate for things that they consider to be clearly already, settled law and so forth, right? And so, so I've been blocked by at least 3 people that I noticed, that are big speakers in Twitteros to the point where I would care, right? I'm sure there's lots of people block me who I don't care because I never noticed them, right? But there's 3. 3 that are big in Twitteros in terms of responding to threads. And, so I right click on if somebody responds to them, then I'll see the response. I'll right click and I'll do, open in incognito tab, and I'll still read what they have to say. And then I might even go ahead and click on their profile, look at all their tweets and stuff. But I actually did go ahead and block them back, mostly because I wanted to have a list.
When you make it big and famous, then those are the people you're going to poop on.
Probably, yeah. So the reason why I wanted to put out the videos was, I saw this thing and it just sort of clicked, and I was like, wow, there's especially the way all the blonde symbolism or all the honey symbolism tied together, and how it would kind of explain why Arthur would be with Val. It would make the blood cry when John says Mance and Val. Well, it's not about them being blood with each other. It's about them both being blood with John, and just sort of ties all these things neatly together. And it was like, I gotta at least put this out there, and so I don't need to go out there and try and get 1,000 subscribers. I just wanted to say, hey, here's my interpretation of these books. I wanted to document it and as best I could and say, here it is. And if nobody sees it, fine. If it's wrong, that's fine too. If some of it turns out to be right, then it's there for people to see, So it was fun.
It's fun. I got really I got really upset and almost didn't do what I'm doing right now because one person on Reddit was a complete and utter, to me, right?
Didn't you delete your account?
No, he gave me a flame out response, and it really hurt me, and I've decided since then that I can't let crap like that, be part of my motivation, right?
Right.
But it took me about 2 months to get out of the funk that came from that. It was really not cool. And so, and not that before that I was somebody who wants to debunk things, but that's the thing that kind of galvanized me around it. This person, it was just completely uncalled for. And all it was like you said, Richard, I had sent an email asking for that feedback early on in my writing those essays, and they never said they didn't want me to send them messages. So I had kept sending them messages as I was putting the few other ones out, and then they just completely dunked on me. It was totally uncool. And whereas like if not just go ahead and block me if you're not interested.
Right.
You would think.
Utter, anyway. So I've seen that it's just not the right way to do it, and we just gotta let that.
Perfectly just mute me.
Yeah.
Perfectly just mute me, right? If you block me, I actually do take offense that you block me, because that means you're trying to keep me from seeing your stuff in addition to not seeing my stuff, and that's kind of annoying, right? If you mute me,
Yeah.
if you mute me, I'm not going to notice, and you're not going to be bothered by me, you know?
When they block you, they definitely want you to know that, hey,
Yeah.
you get blocked.
Yeah, and so I take that a little personally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we go back to a couple things? I mean, we're all fans of the Order of the Green Hand. Can I talk a little bit about some theories I have that are a little interesting, somewhat kind of related to that?
How long is this going to take? Because I'm running pretty close to putting my 7-year-old to bed.
Oh, yeah. 9 o'clock was your. Well, let's just plant seeds for next time.
Okay.
So, Richard, you've got the N+A = J shirt on. As you mentioned in the last stream, I disagree with that, mainly because I think the evidence, unfortunately, is against us at this point. It was never an N+A J. I was one of the B+A = J's.
B, yes.
Again, I kind of give up on that theory, but what I like about what Green Hand did is how they found the connection to the fisherman's daughter.
Yeah.
And 100% still agree that Ashara Dane is the fisherman's daughter.
Well, as I think it was John Ice was saying on Twitter, just because even if R plus L equals J, that doesn't actually rule out the fact that he's still got all these clues about bigamy in the story, and he's still got and so you could in fact still have the Stark identity crisis even if R plus L equals J, right? You could still and it could still be a big deal to discuss whether Bran is winds up being Bran the Bastard and so forth. All that can still all happen.
Well, so yeah. I mean, what I was getting to though is I still think that B+A is a thing, not N+A. So your point about Val, well, Val would have in that case, she would be the daughter of Ashara and Brandon, so she would be Stark. She would be she would be Dane, and so would John, right? So John would be a Stark. So they would be related still in my.
Right.
They would be blood.
But it's actually, but Mance Raiders included it. But your point is maybe the blood is between the two of them, and rather than between John and Val. I mean, between John and Mance.
Right. Yeah.
That's what you're saying.
So
sure.
we can get it kind of close to right and still respect each other's theories. Was my point here. The other thing, we talk about Dany. I find it very, very interesting that now my headcanon, and this happened afterwards, my headcanon is that those three Kingsguard lived, right? And Willem, my suggestion of Willem Dustin, I find it very interesting that four men went to, four men were helping Dany and Viserys and Willem Derry out of, in my opinion, those four men there's two options. One of them is Ned Stark, Arthur Dane, Oswell Went, and Gerald Hightower, right? That's one potential option for it. Or it's all the Wents and that's it, right? Because they were the ones sent that way. I mentioned earlier Oswell Kettleback = Oswell Went. That's where my thoughts are on it. I think it's very interesting that Oswell is this man who's just blindly supporting the man who happens to now be the Lord of Harrenhal. I think far too coincidental. And where were they at before they became supporters of Littlefinger and came to King's Landing? Well, they were in the Golden Company, in my opinion, right? So, and where were they at before they were in the Golden Company? Well, wherever. They were somewhere either with young Griff or they were somewhere with Dany at that point. To me, it's just kind of it writes itself as far as that goes. But I think those four men are one of those two options. I think that aside from the Tower of Joy, which is hinted at here in this chapter we just discussed,
right?
A lot of stuff happened at Starfall. A lot more than we're ever going to find out, right? Or at least then we're going to find out,
right?
Or put something else out, right?
So I've pretty much pretty much convinced that I used to really think that the House with the Red Door was going to wind up being in Starfall, but I don't think so. I think they have to. I think there's too much with the Tyroshi accent to imply. But I don't understand what the thing is. Starfall is a cool reveal. So that's what I don't understand about giving her a Tyroshi accent is what does that do? Like okay, the House of the Red, other than say that she has a false backstory, it doesn't do anything.
The other thing, yeah, I think that you know the history about the original Dragon book that he put out, the novella he put out, and all that. But
sure.
So it's changed in there, so we know there's something weird going on there, right?
Right, but as Preston says, it was changed to make it less clear and more obviously fake.
Right. He makes it so that we don't know for sure, right? The Tyroshi thing, maybe she got it from being young there, maybe not. We don't know. The thing I find interesting though is we have parallel journeys. So when Marcella leaves King's Landing, they go to the Bravosi coastline, then they go down the coast and they go to Dorne. Well, what if the real Marcella actually went to Bravos, and the desert girl that we find in Dorne is the only one that actually made it there, and that's not even the real Marcella. So
we know there's at least one double. So what could there be two doubles is an interesting question.
Either way, the voyage is very similar to exactly what Dany and Viserys could have done. So Dany and Viserys went from Dragonstone to the Bravosi coastline, right? And then Viserys says they lived in Bravos. Well, what if they separated? Viserys lived in Bravos and Dany lived in Dorne, Tyrosh. I don't really care which it is.
Right.
It doesn't matter. But
at this point, it's just about it being a fake story, right? It's about them seeming to be. I mean, she even talks about how it's not the home to him, right? That was almost implied that he wasn't there.
Yeah. If it was in Dorne, I think that Willem Dustin was that Willem Darry that was with Dany, right? If not, yeah, I find it hard to believe that he got there, but certainly he wasn't going back to the north. So either way, he was dead to his prior identity, if that's the case.
It does seem like there should have been a Kingsguard that went with Dany, and so the argument that some people make is, well, shouldn't that have been Oswell, and then now he's with Littlefinger, but he went with Dany originally.
I think the timing shows us that possibly it was the Wentz. And then when the Young Griff's conspiracy started to happen, that they were found, there was a way to convince them to leave Dany's side for one reason or another, right? Preston starts to hit on that, but I think the timing is right for when that conspiracy happens, for them to be separated from whatever they were doing for that 5 years or whatever. Same time as Dany, is no longer at the house with the Red Door. He's reunited with Viserys. So, in the Young Griff thing happens, somebody that made them decide that he was the one they should be behind instead of Dany. But to me, it's clear that the Kettle Blacks were sowing discord in King's Landing and trying to pave the way for Young Griff to come at this point.
I like that.
Could be.
I wrote it all down so I could research before the next time we talk. It's getting close to my 9 o'clock cutoff.
I appreciate it having being on with you guys. I really I'd like to do it again at some point.
Oh, definitely.
It'll work out, and maybe the next Eddard. Who knows?
Yeah, it was fun. Well, I mean, I'm gonna text you my real number because that was my wife's number that I gave you earlier. Okay. But I mean, anytime you want to jump on with us, we're more than pleased to have you come. This has been a complete blast. I appreciate it a lot, and you don't know how much it does actually mean to me that a bigger star will come and sit and talk to us, and I appreciate it.
Well, make sure I get the link to this. Copy me on Twitter or whatever, because I will add a link inside my latest video, because I did mention that as well.
Okay.
I'll put a link so that people can go to this stream.
I appreciate it. All right. This is how we normally wrap things up. We appreciate everybody watching and listening to this video. I have been Old New Dude. Richard has been
Richard York, Asher Strumorn's son.
And Guy has been
the Green Bard.
All right.
This has been the Bard's Truth.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.